Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time it is for you, depending on what part of the world you are joining in from. Thank you for joining in. This is Come Kingdom Vibes, KKV Live. Let's get talking. And this afternoon, this evening, this session, we are talking about autism awareness and how we can improve chances for autistic kids in rural areas, thinking especially about our home country and about our home villages. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining. Please share and invite others to join, because we are all part of this crusade to raise awareness, to increase and enhance acceptance, and to support development of programs and projects that will help our autistic fellow countrymen, brothers and sisters, neighbors, community people So please invite, share the link. We'll be starting in a few minutes because we have a very powerful guest in the building who is going to help us understand this topic a little bit more so we know what we ought to do. So thank you again for tuning in. Share the feed, and let's begin by enjoying this piece of music, because I know my guest today is somebody, hey, when she puts on her dancing shoes, the stackers here, you'll be lost. So let's lead off today's program with some music just to get our hearts pumping and our feet ready, our brains ticking, so that the program will, continue in a great manner. So, and this first song that I'm going to play is dedicated to my man, Eziko, who is having his 10th anniversary today. Eziko Shoga is celebrating his 10th anniversary today in the music world. So we use this to initiate our program today. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy, and we'll be right back.
How you did? Oh, my friend, I'm a young man, I say to leave. How you did? Oh, I've been young, was easy to go. I've been young, how you did? Yeah, we been young. Mes amis, écoute, Oka. God, I want to be a model in my generation. I want to be a model in my generation. Papa got to disconnect me from all wrong connection. Papa got to disconnect me from all wrong connection. Because I was born to lead, not to follow. You were born to lead, not to follow. The level where we did, no be one level. If you believe me, brother, join me, we sing. When God touch your life, oh, you will become young. Even brother, oh, you will become a model. If you believe in God, join me, may we sing. I am. Say I want to be a model in my generation. I want to be a model in my generation. Papa got to disconnect me from all wrong connection. Papa got to disconnect me from all wrong connection. Higher, 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 higher. Disconnect me. Hallelujah. Amen. People of God, how we do, we be young, children of God, how we do. I say we be young, so it's good, how I do. So I be my manager, how we do. Yeah, we be young. The Bible says, touch not my anointed and do my prophet no harm. Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through him who strengthens me. If Jesus is for me, who can be against me? Okay. No person, no fit trial. We be young. No person, no fit trial. Oh, we be young. No, don't see my life. Oh, I say I be young. No, destroy my name. Oh, I say I be young. Your business places, I prefer to follow you. In your marriages, I prefer to follow you. In your families, I prefer to follow you. Anywhere you go, I prefer to follow you. Follow me.
All right. Welcome back, dear viewers, dear listeners. Thank you for joining in again. Our topic of the day, improving chances for autistic children in rural areas. And who best to join us to discuss this topic than somebody who is the leading voice in autism advocacy, autism ambassador, autism advocate, my own very sister, somebody who graduated from the University of Boya, UB, the place to be, I guess, and went further to do a master's in information systems management, and even further to do a postgraduate in autism and Asperger. Ladies and gentlemen, this is somebody who has dedicated her life to bringing hope, lifting spirits, sharing information as much as she can to ensure that other people who might not otherwise be familiar with the challenges of autism get to know more about it, especially in less developed countries, in places like Cameroon, in places like our villages, where there's still a lot of lack of knowledge. There's still hesitancy to acceptance. There's still a lot of factors that limit our ability to handle situations of this manner. She is the founder and CEO of Canabilities Foundation. She is also the founder of Every Little Life Matters. And she is the beautiful, beautiful competitor, finalist in Mrs. Africa UK 2021 pageant. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, AC Mbeng.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for
I
having me.
guess
And you've
I'm going to
forgotten
say
to say we shared.
good evening to you, right? Because it's
Yes, it's
already
good
evening
evening. And you've forgotten
on your
to
side of the
say,
ocean. Mm-hmm.
yes, you actually forgot to say you and I share the same birthday.
Oh yeah, I was waiting for you to say that because I wanted to trap you. If you did not say that, then we'll have trouble. Thank God you caught it. Otherwise, I was just waiting to see if you remember that. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are so blessed. We share the same birthday, so we are twins. Yes, we are twins. Great. So thank you for accepting the invitation to join our KKV platform and to share in this very, very big topic, a topic that is a really powerful topic for our people. And I'm glad that you found the time because I know you're a busy person and we're going to be discussing a lot of those different things that you are busy doing. So to find the time to come out like this and share your experiences and your thoughts and what you know and what you think people should know is a marvelous, marvelous thing to do. So thank you for coming in.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure having me here at Come Kingdom Vibes. I mean, we are going to do a lot of dancing today as well as a lot of talking. So thank you.
All right. So let's just jump into it. This is a kitchen table discussion, right? So it's not necessarily like some interview. So we're just going to talk, and my job is simply to probe you to bring out all of that information that you have in your head so that our audience and our viewers will get some knowledge out of it that they can use and help you in this advocacy mission that you have engaged in for quite a long time now. So let's just begin with the basic question that anybody would normally start with, a definition. Right, you go into any class and they're like, okay, biology, what is biology? Chemistry, what is chemistry? So we are talking about autism today. So I think it's a good place to start. What is autism?
Yeah, that's a good question to ask. Before I got to know about autism, I had no idea what it was all about until 2005 when a friend actually told me about autism, that she works with autistic kids. Before then, I'd never heard of it. So when I heard of autism, the O in autism, I thought it was an auditory problem. I thought it was a hearing problem, but until when my child was diagnosed with autism that I got to know about it. So what exactly is autism? There are so many definitions put in different ways, but it still boils down to the same thing. So, autism is a neurological developmental condition. I always like to add it's an invisible condition and it's a long term condition. It's a condition which you are born with it and you will grow up as an adult with autism. So, neurological, so it affects the brain. Some say it people who are autistic, their brains function differently or their brains are wired differently. So it's a long-term neurological developmental condition. It affects the way an individual communicates. It affects the way an individual interacts, and socializes with the rest of the world or with people around him. Sometimes, because of how it affects these individuals, so it may affect their behavior as well. Some some individuals look at autism as a behavioral condition, but it isn't. It affects communication, interaction, and also how the person perceives sensory processing issues. So, like I said initially, someone is born with autism, but a baby with autism a baby cannot be diagnosed just from birth with autism until they start looking at the milestones, until they start looking at how the baby is developing, maybe in terms of communication, in terms of speech, in terms of development as well. So, what would they be looking at exactly? Some children develop differently, and whether a child is autistic or not, we all know that children develop differently. Some will start speaking at an earlier age than others. Some maybe will start babbling, saying bab bab bab, or will react to their names or to when they're being called earlier than others. But with autistic children, it takes a longer time for them maybe to start talking. It takes a longer time for them to start understanding the spoken language. So you might have an autistic child who is he or she may be sitting right there with you and you are talking. You may actually think they have a hearing problem, but they don't. Because when you talk to them, it takes time before they process the information that is being input into their brains or into their heads. So it takes time to
Right.
react to what you've said. And then you have autistic children who talk, you have others who do not talk. You have others who can talk for England, but the way they talk is they repeat whatever is being said to them or whatever question is being asked to them. Then you also have those who they seem isolated. They don't know or they won't want to play with their peers, or they don't actually know how to interact or how to play with their friends or with others. And
Okay.
when you give a
Let
child,
me let me interrupt you there a little bit and maybe give you an opportunity to continue in the same line of thought, but with a little bit
Mhm,
of angle to it. Um,
mhm,
what you are describing here, what my understanding is that there's different ways in which autism would manifest itself. Is that why it is called a spectrum disorder? Is
yes,
because I was going to ask you about this? Why is it referred to as a spectrum disorder? But my understanding of the way you are describing the different manifestations might be so. Is
yeah.
that the idea? You can pick it up from there.
That's the idea. There's this common saying in the autism community: once you've met one person with autism, you've met just that one person. So I will not say just because I have an autistic child, I know exactly how your child with autism will behave or will react, because they will behave differently, they will interact differently, and that's why they call it a spectrum. Some will say there's mild, there's severe, there's mild, severe, and there are three of them. What's the other word? So
Is
there's
it
mild
acute? I
autism,
don't know if it's
severe
acute
autism.
or
Yep,
something.
I think it is severe. Yeah, yeah. So you have that spectrum, which is why they say it affects each individual differently. As they say, once you've met one person with autism, you've met just that one person with autism. Like I was explaining earlier, some can really communicate in verbally, some don't communicate verbally at all. Like some don't talk at all, like my son, but he communicates with we are going to go into that anyway, and in the some of the resources that can be used to support autistic children for them to be able to communicate better. So you also have those who can talk. but they talk in repetition, which is called echolalia. So they'll repeat everything that you say to them before. And then you also have those who struggle with sensory processing issues. You know, I don't know if you would have met an autistic child in the middle of a crowd, or maybe in a shopping center, or how us Africans or Cameroonians, we like our parties, we like our loud music. So you take your autistic child there, the noise, the sound of the music, the smell, everything around there affects them. Some you find them covering their ears
Right.
like that, and maybe some of them flapping their hands, jumping up and down. If you don't really know how it affects your own child or it affects another child, you may find that whatever they are doing is a bit weird, but that that's how that's some of the things that they do to stimulate themselves, or maybe some will even abscond or even run away from the noisy areas. And those who communicate very well, they can actually explain to you how that noise, how the sounds, how the smells, how the lighting affects them. And some do say it's quite painful. So when they close their ears, it's because the sounds are unbearable, or the lighting probably they don't like. Maybe people have heard of making an environment, making a community hall or a church autism friendly. Maybe it's to be able to reduce the lighting, maybe to be able to reduce the sounds. And I know in one of my shows, Eric Moore actually mentioned that sometimes we speak with a lot of gestures, making a lot of signs. An autistic child who has learned how to sign, or to use Makaton to do the sign language, which is called Makaton for autistic children or other children with communication issues, they will get quite confused when you are talking to them and you're doing all the things with your hands. And yeah, so it's quite different with each individual.
Wow.
So that's
Right.
what
And
I can say at the moment. Yeah.
you, you did mention off the top that you didn't get too familiar with it yourself. Now you're an expert in it,
Hmm.
but you didn't get familiar with it until later on in the mid 2000s, right? Which means that while you were
Yeah.
back home, like me, like the people that are back home,
Hmm.
they would have been
Hmm.
unaware as well. So, what are
Hmm.
some of the factors that you think back home that limit our ability to quickly recognize this disorder as something that needs attention, that needs care, that needs patience? What are some of the factors you can think about when you think back home, some of the limiting factors?
Okay. Just offhand, I will say a lack of knowledge, um, lack of awareness on things about disability in general, because not everyone. We all know that autism is considered as a disability, and not everyone is aware that disability varies, that there are different forms of disability. So lack of knowledge or lack of awareness on this thing would also limit our ability to recognize. But knowing exactly what autism is, knowing how it affects a child, knowing what to look out for signs, symptoms, and what to do when you think there's something wrong with your child, it's also another problem. And then I think in rural areas, not only in rural areas, with so many of us, one of the things that would limit our ability to seek help is that denial aspect of it. Because when you are taken by surprise with a tragedy, or with something that you were never prepared for, just imagine what happened when COVID came. It took us by surprise. It shocked the world. It shocked each and every one of us. We were not prepared. That's what happens when your family is hit with an autism diagnosis. You you probably were not prepared for that, because when a family is expecting a baby, no one will ever sit and think oh, my child may have a disability, so I should start getting ready. So I should start preparing my mind that that's what's going to happen. With autism, it cannot be detected that your child is going to be autistic when you are pregnant, unlike other disabilities like Down syndrome. So when that happens after you've had your child starts achieving all their milestones. They start speaking, they start walking properly, they start interacting, answering to their names and everything. And then suddenly something happens, which most often us parents do not know exactly what would have gone wrong. Your child stops talking. Your child stops doing whatever he or she was already doing as far as their development is concerned, and they regress. So you are shocked. You don't know what to do at that point. So the first thing that comes to mind is, no, this cannot be happening to me. No, this cannot be happening to my child. Even though as a parent you have the instincts, you may have started recognizing that, or you may have started picking up that maybe there's something different with my child. Maybe my child is not really doing what he or she is supposed to be doing at this particular age, but deep within you, you are still praying, you are still wishing that it shouldn't be what you are thinking. So the fact that we start denying at the beginning really limits so many things. It stops us from seeking help or from asking many questions. It prevents us from taking our child to the doctors to find out more. And the fact that in our African culture, we still look at disability as a taboo topic, as something which we shouldn't really talk about, as um, because you the parent, you are there struggling, you are wondering what's happening with your child. Outsiders would have already picked up as well that there's probably something wrong with that child. Many will not come to you, many will not be bold or kind enough to approach you and maybe say, do you think there's something wrong with your child that you can seek help? Many will not say it in your face. Many will prefer to say it as gossip, and then you will hear those words as gossip. Or when you take your child out, you see the way you are being looked at, you see the way that other children behave towards your child. You start feeling
And
uncomfortable.
you did mention the word taboo there, and as you say, the denial part of it might sometimes be associated with our community, the environment, right? Like
Yes.
what's being thrown out, like witchcraft, like nyongo, like
Mm,
all those kinds of things. The
mhm.
frighten the frighten not just the rest of the community but the parent themselves to not want
Yes.
to accept that that's the situation. And so sometimes is that a feeling that you have, that sometimes parents are afraid to even acknowledge the existence of this for fear of all these other labels. And so our discussion today is going to be maybe looking at how do we break that barrier to allow people the freedom of acknowledging the existence of something like this, and therefore going out to seek the help that you are talking about if it's available. So you want to comment on that aspect of society expectations and religion, culture, all those kinds of things, and how they play
Yes.
into this.
Oh, definitely. The societal expectations, or what people will expect your child to be, same as us parents, we expect our children to be able to do certain things at a certain age. And then what people say, or what people will say, we are afraid of that as well. What people will say about you, the mom, about you, the dad, probably is something they did. Um maybe he didn't kill the goat or the fowl that was asked of him, or maybe something she did with her womb when she was young. So things like that really, they really affect you. And again, having a child with a disability, having an autistic child, can be quite challenging as well, especially if you do not have the support and the resources around you. And just having to take your child out is quite demanding, because and you may have a 10-year-old who is still, in terms of behavior, in terms of development, he may still be at the age of a 2-year-old. So which means taking out a 10-year-old will be the same as taking out a 2-year-old or even a 1-year-old. So which means you still have quite a lot. And as a parent, sometimes only the thought of those things limit you, stop you from even taking your child out, especially like I said, if you do not have a lot of support or a lot of resources out there. But what we can do to limit or to help parents or to help everyone around us to be able to support these children and these families is it, there's this saying that it takes a child, it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a child with autism to raise the consciousness of that village. Oftentimes people are fond of saying it takes a village to raise a child, but when it comes to a child with autism or a child with any form of disability, the child seems to be more of the parents, because nobody's willing to babysit. Nobody's willing to give that helping hand to your child because they think that it's too much work, it's too much stress. But at the end of the day, the parents, I always say, parents, you need to speak up, you need to speak out, you need to be able to tell friends, families about what is happening with your child. Because when you do not, it will be very difficult for someone just to pop in and start asking you questions. And as a parent who has been there before, we get a little bit, we get overly protective for our children as well. Yeah, because deep down there, you know that you are aware that maybe there's something wrong with your child, but at the same time you don't want another person to be the one to mention it to you. So if
Right.
us parents, we are open to be able to talk about what is happening with our children, about our child's or our children's conditions, that's really going to help. Because when you inform family, when you inform friends, yeah, you feel much better, you feel much relaxed. Because if you have to take your child out to an event, to an occasion, you're already aware that there are people there who already know my child's condition, who already know his or her struggles, and will be there readily available to support. But telling people also comes with acceptance. Parents as well will have to go through the stages of grief to be able to get to that point that they are able to accept that this is my child, that the child that I have in front of me is the child that I was supposed to have, not the one that I thought, or not the one that I was thinking that I was supposed to have. So accepting the one that you have in front of you will also help you quite a lot in supporting the child, and to be able to do a lot more for your child in the community, or even within the house. Then raising awareness as well. Not everybody will want to raise awareness. Not everyone will want to advocate, but at some point, a parent needs to be an advocate for for their child, for their children. At
Absolutely.
some point, they have to be the voice for their children, because if you do not speak up for your child, if you do not show people that I have accepted my son or my daughter the way he or she is,
Is
others around you will not
will not.
accept your child. Yeah.
Absolutely, and this is and I'm so proud of you. Not only for your own personal experience, which I'm going to ask you here, because with certain things, have you ever been in a situation where somebody is talking and they talk about maybe marriage or something, and somebody says, I'm going to go talk to father this, and hey, what does father know about marriage? Fathers don't get married, right? So it's like people
Yeah.
feel like unless you are part of something, your voice doesn't necessarily count, because that experience itself is the best teacher. Reading from books and other places, you have the certifications, the degrees to go along with this knowledge, but you also have that hands-on experience with it. And so maybe for this to round down this first session of our discussion, before we now come to tools and resources, especially for people in the rural areas, maybe you want to share just a little bit your own personal personal story about or experience with autism.
Oh,
And before you take that,
okay.
I just want to mention and acknowledge Danielle, who has made some really important comments in the comments section. We will be taking some of those. She has mentioned educational programs. I know that when we come to what we can do to enhance acceptance and limit denial, educational programs will be good. Gossip scares a lot of people. So thank you, Danielle, for that. Thank you to all our viewers that are in right now. So let me come back to you, AC. Comment on your own personal experience that gives you not just the strength to talk about these things, but the knowledge that you have gathered from your own personal experience, if you don't mind.
Thank you so much, and I'm really grateful for having me on your platform today. And thank you everyone for listening and watching. You mentioned earlier that I'm an expert. No, I'm not an expert. I actually saw a post the other day which I made last year that sometimes people think that before they recognize you for being somebody in society, you have to have all these titles attached to your name. So I remember saying that I'm AC and I have a wealth of experience of knowledge in the areas in which I have experience in. Yes, true.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so and one of these areas which is personal experience is autism. Like I said earlier, I never knew what autism was until 2005. A friend mentioned it to me. If
Oh,
I
by the way,
remember very
let me interrupt you and just say what our viewers are saying out there, that you are an expert. So don't deny it. So you have right there, you are an expert. So do not deny it. So proceed, please.
thank you so much for that, doctor. So I never knew what autism was, but if when I look back and I remember when this friend told me and explained to me exactly what it entailed, I remember there was this fear that went down my spine. I'd never known exactly why I had that fear until um when my son was diagnosed with autism. I think then he was about three and a half. He was born premature, so we had always expected that there would be a delay of some form. Obviously, any child that's born extremely premature will have one may have one form of delay or the other. So we had expected that there was something, but after watching a movie on autism, I went to his doctor and I had written down quite a lot of the things that I noticed from the little boy in the movie and what my son is doing. And I thought there were quite a lot of similarities. So I went and I spoke to his consultant and I said, this is what I found. And because there was he used to do a lot of rocking, a lot of switching on and off the lights, like repetitive behaviors and then flapping of hands. Then he had not started talking, and then you can stand and call him and call several times. He's just standing there, and then after a long time before he would turn around and look at you. So I thought there was more, just there was more to it because he has global developmental delay. So I thought there was more to it. So when I talked with his doctor, bam, the next appointment letter came with autism diagnosis in addition to what he already has. Unlike other parents who the autism diagnosis will come like a big shock to them, to me or to us as a family, it came a little bit as a relief, because at some point I thought it was getting too complicated to start telling someone, oh, my child was born premature, he has global developmental delay, he has, I mean, some there was just a lot to be explaining to someone, to be telling people. So I thought if I just say he's autistic or he has autism, that may be easier. So that's how it all started. But at the same time, we still had to go through the grieving process, because for your information, you also grieve a child who is growing up with a disability. As parents, as individuals, we also go through that the process of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. So probably the fact that I'm able to talk more about autism, about our experiences with our child, somehow indicates a certain level of acceptance, because when you've not reached that acceptance stage, it's difficult to come to stand in public and share your experiences or share your challenges. But in all, it's been 15 years, it will be 16 years. It's been a long journey with him, and we won't choose anyone other than him. He's a source of joy in our family. And a friend once asked me, "How do you do it?" The way you treat your son is like everybody will want to have an autistic child. So it was quite funny. And another friend once asked, he doesn't talk, but you seem to be communicating with him very well. One thing which we all have to know is that speaking and communication are two different things.
Different things,
I
right?
may I may not have I may not add I may not be able to communicate verbally, but I'll still be able to to communicate, to
So
pass
in a
on my
sense, just
message,
assume,
to
so in a
request my
sense, just
needs and
assume that
wants.
he's speaking in Russian and you are speaking in English. I mean, right? It's like you're
Exactly.
speaking two
Yeah.
different languages, but as long as you understand each other, that's perfectly fine. That's communication.
Exactly. That's communication. Yeah. So communication doesn't only have to be the spoken
In your,
language. You
and
can
or
use
at least not
signs.
in your
Yeah.
language, even if it's spoken, it doesn't have to be
Mhm.
in your language, right? I
Yes.
heard this from you. I mentioned this because I heard this from you in one of your shows.
Mhm.
um, it's like sometimes the parents want the child to only learn their language, and they're not patient enough to try to learn the child's own language.
Exactly.
And I think in
Yes.
this case of autism, it's very important for the parents to want to
Mhm.
learn the language of the child, to go back and learn
Yes.
what language the child is speaking so that they can communicate with the child better.
Yes. Because what's actually happening now, is most people will try to get the child to adjust to the way we do things, instead of us adjusting to the way the child does his or her things, or trying to teach the we have to try and teach the child in the way that he or she will understand better, rather than us forcing our method onto the child. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that that's a good place to take our first break. We have heard about autism. We have heard about some of the challenges or signs or ways that children with autism might manifest from, maybe not talking or talking in some language that we don't understand, to behaviors, their actions in some situations. So we should be able to recognize these signs and be able to tell. But again, sometimes there is denial, there is refusal to accept, and there are tools, there are ways that we can encourage people to become more amenable to this, to become more accepting of the situation so that they can take better care of their children or their neighbors. And when we come back, we will talk about some of those. AC will help us point out from her experience what tools or resources she thinks that are needed, especially for people in the rural areas. How can we gain access to them and give them the information that they need so that they can do a better job? So let's take a break and enjoy Nini, which is talking about a child's love for the mother.
That's my name. Oh,
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. That was Nini by Aya Leonette. That's celebrating the mother-child bond, and you can imagine it fits right in with our topic of today. And we have in the house our autism ambassador, autism advocate, and founder of Can Abilities Foundation, AC Mbeng, with us in the building. So again, welcome back, AC, again, and thank you for joining us today to talk about this. As we begin to shift towards the final segment of this program, let's talk about some of the resources. How do we make things better for autistic kids back in Cameroon, especially in the rural areas? What information do you know now you wish you knew back then, and how can we bring that information to the people? So let's begin with parents. I know you have already touched on all of this. So from the parents' perspective, what should parents know? So just very quickly on the parents' side.
Thank you so much for that. As I already said, it takes a village to raise a child. What parents should really do at the beginning, once you have those instincts that something is wrong, act on your instincts. They always say that parents' instincts are very strong and they hardly fail. So when you know that there's something wrong, just start acting. And acting is asking questions, taking your child to see the doctor to find out what is happening. Because with autism, they say early assessment leads to early diagnosis and early intervention. You can't leave it too long. Even though they say autism, it's a disability, it's a lifelong disability, it cannot be treated, but there are interventions that are out there that they can use to help your child, to support your child to live an independent life, or to live a better and a fulfilled life as he or she grows into an adult. So parents being aware of what is happening is very important. So you get your child to be seen by a doctor, you educate yourself as well. When you are a parent, do not be quiet, do not be silent, do not say it is nobody's business. I think it's everyone's business. Family, friends, those who care, it is their business. Because the more you stay, the more you will struggle, and the more your child will struggle as well. Because when your child is diagnosed, they will they you may be able to know about schools that you can send your child to. You may be able to learn methods or ways in which you can support your child, maybe in communication, maybe in if they have challenging behaviors, or maybe with their sensory issues. But knowing what to do is very important,
Very
and
important.
it starts
So
with
start so
you as a
with the
parent.
parent at home.
Mhm.
So as you said, and I think you mentioned it at the beginning, that from home there is no shame, right? That the parents should understand that there is it they're not guilty of anything. It's not like they did something wrong. They should
Yes.
be ready to accept this because there is no guilt, there is no fault on their side. There should be no shame,
Yeah.
and if they're willing to overcome those pieces and are able to accept the child with the understanding that this is something that requires management and that's all that it needs, then they may
Yeah.
be able to get it done. Is that
Yes, exactly. If this should be any consolation, any parent out there who has a child with autism, or any parent who has a child with a disability, should not feel guilty, because the child's condition is nothing that they did wrong. It's they shouldn't be taking care of their children in guilt. Any child that you have is the child you were supposed to have, unless it's an accident that occurred that rendered your child disabled. Okay, that you will say, okay, it was never meant to be like this, if not of what happened. Sometimes in situations like that, parents end up being guilty, maybe because of something they could have avoided. But having a child with autism is nothing you did wrong. That is a child in front of you to be loved, accepted, and understood and included in every aspect, in every activities, in everything that every other child without a disability is involved in the community. Do not
Absolutely.
restrict your child because you think he or she cannot do this.
Do something.
um we keep putting the this in a child's ability, which is why we decided to use in can abilities foundation, because every child, every individual can do something. What I usually say is, if you have a child with a condition with autism who can only jump, that is something that he is doing. We all know that there are some who are wheelchair bound. There are some who have never seen, who have never heard a spoken word. So if you have an autistic child, he jumps, he laughs, he smiles, he shouts, he makes noises. Appreciate every little thing that they do
Absolutely.
and
And
accept
now,
them the way they are. Yeah.
now link that to us, the rest of us, the community, because
Yeah.
I think, as you indicated at the beginning, we do play a significant role in helping with this acceptance. If we are the ones gossiping, if we are the ones throwing these stories here and there about this happened, this, that, then we are not contributing positively to this crusade at
Yeah.
all, right? So the community does have
Yeah.
some kind of a role to play here, not running
Yeah.
around mocking their age
Yeah.
mates, pulling them one way or the other. So talk about that.
Mm.
How we as a community, what we need to do to ensure that we are not contributing to the denial and the lack of acceptance and all of that.
Yeah. If we are a compassionate community, we are a caring community, we will be able to know that this is something that can happen to anyone. It didn't happen to you or to that particular family because it was meant to be. It could have been any other family. It could have been any other person in that community. So once we change the way we think, the way we reason, that what has happened to this person can equally happen to me. Maybe not me directly, maybe to a family member. Then probably we will start looking at things in a more a kinder way. Like if I see a child or family that's struggling with an autistic child, instead of me um talking behind their backs, or instead of me um saying, well, that woman, she's always looking so frustrated, she's always agitated, she's always worried. You don't know what she goes through on on every single day. She may be agitated, she may have been looking frustrated or tired because she may have spent sleepless nights, because sleeplessness is one of the things that affects autistic children. And what I came to realize is, um those words that people throw at you behind your back, in your face, it's all out of ignorance, because anybody who is aware, anybody who knows exactly what is happening, will not deliberately want to hurt another person's feeling. So
Absolutely.
telling them, yes, telling them, letting them know that this is what is happening. Obviously, once they become aware and knowledgeable enough, even if it's your natural self being nasty to someone with a disability or to an autistic child, you will always think twice before you say something. I know there are people who will normally just say, oh, that Ngombe picking them, or that Chris picking them. Some people are naturally like that, but they have to be sensible enough to know that that Ngombe child or that Chris picking is somebody's beloved child,
Right.
and who could equally be yours tomorrow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I do think that as a community, we have to be more compassionate, more caring, and then willing to learn to embrace and accept people or individuals the way they are.
And back in Cameroon, if you think about Douala, Yaoundé, yes, there might be some specialized centers, and maybe I know that you are in your during your recent travels, you might have visited one of those places that
Mhm.
they do exist. But when you go into the remote areas, you will not have those
Yeah.
specialized centers or things like that. And sometimes our kids that are in these remote areas, initial attempts will be to send them to regular school. They will be there. And even when the parents don't understand what it is, maybe the teachers can help, in molding this. So what do you think the role of educational teachers can be, and what kind of characteristics would teachers need to have to be able to handle children that they see in their class that are autistic, given that, there will usually be some kind of syllabus or program that the teacher needs to complete, but dealing
Yeah.
with an autistic child in your class requires some additional level of patience, I suppose, and ability to accommodate, right? Accommodations. Yeah. So talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
accommodations to, yeah, especially in areas where there are no specialized programs. What would you suggest, or how do you feel about it, and how do you think that can be supported?
Yeah, I earlier mentioned about compassion, care, and that patience. You don't have if you don't naturally have these characteristics, the ability to be patient, understanding, caring, compassionate. It's very difficult to take care of these children, and then it gets more difficult in a rural area because autistic children with additional needs are being sent to mainstream school, which most children or almost every child in a mainstream classroom doesn't need one-on-one care or support in class. A teacher just has to go to the blackboard and start explaining, and then they take out their books and their notes and they start writing or they answer questions. But with an autistic child, you have to be there on a one-on-one basis. It depends on the 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 child spectrum, the level in which the child is, how much the autism has affected the child as well. But quite a few of them do need one-on-one support, and some do need two teachers to support them.
Right.
And this in our rural areas, we do not have special needs teachers to be able to support these children. So they find themselves struggling. They get frustrated, obviously, because they do not understand what is happening with the child. And at first instant, what we see is a stubborn child,
Right.
and it's a child who doesn't want to follow instructions. He doesn't
And
want
so
to
must
sit
and,
down.
and so
He's just
must be punished instead of accommodated.
must be punished. Unfortunately, yeah, a child who doesn't want to sit still, a child who talks whenever he wants to talk, a child who will just say anything. So, if we do not know what autism is, we won't be able to help these children. But so there is that need for individuals to be trained before you sit there in a classroom to teach a child with additional needs. You have to have some level of specialized education in that area. You have to have an understanding of what that condition exactly is, what it is, and how it affects each child, because it affects them differently, and what you can do to actually support them. With some children with autism may get more affected because autism also has comorbidities. It also sometimes it comes with other conditions that aggravate their autism. Some will have epilepsy, some will have cerebral palsy, some will have many other gastroenterological problems, just to name a few. And
Hmm.
once you do not understand that each of these conditions have a major effect on the child as well as their conditions, you may not be able to understand exactly. So all I would say, as far as teachers or those who support special needs children, autistic children in the classroom, they really need some form of training before they before they really take up that position to
And I guess
teach or to
extra
support a child.
Right. And I guess extra support too, because if you think about it, when we were back home, if even if a teacher was willing, like anybody that needed extra classes, right? You were in class, but then you
Mhm.
needed extra classes. There were some teachers that will go around teaching evening classes or doing
Yeah,
those. But the students that will attend those evening classes are only the students of parents that can afford it. But in
exactly.
the rural area, you will not have many of those parents, even if they have autistic children, who can afford to get a teacher like that to teach their child one on one. So you are thinking
Mhm.
Can Abilities Foundation and other group or support groups that work in this area can typically look to how to support. And for anybody out there or any teacher out there who is
Mhm.
teaching in a rural area and thinking, wow, this could make me interested in seeing how I could contribute to helping
Yeah.
autistic kids in my area, maybe set up some evening classes or one-on-one classes, but they
Mhm.
will need support. And I'm pretty sure that when we come to talk about some of your initiatives, things that you have been doing
Mhm.
individually at your level to try to support
Mhm.
kids with autism, you will definitely mention how maybe programs can be created like that to support teachers
Yeah,
who are willing to train and work with kids like that, even in remote areas. Is that something that sounds like something that Canabilities would engage in? Or I mean, I know that you do
exactly.
engage in some of it already, but yeah.
Yes, exactly. I personally, if I need somebody to teach my child, it will have to be a proper interview, and you will have to full. There will be a job description, and then there's a person specification that you have to fulfill. There are things which you must know in order to be able to teach my child, and that should apply to every other person teaching an autistic child or a child with special needs. So that's definitely something which we have to take up to. And I know quite a few individuals have approached me. They are interested in autism studies. They are interested in taking care of children with autism. Yes, there is also the part of taking care of. You can actually be very good at taking care of a child, maybe in their home, in the child's home, maybe as a babysitter or a support worker. But there are still things that you need to know. And often, if a parent is knowledgeable enough, if she has given herself time to train to learn, she can actually train these individuals on how they can teach or on how they can support their children. Yes, it is very important to have individuals in our communities, in our rural areas, to be able to train to support our autistic individuals. I know one of my girls, Colette, last year we had an outreach program where she went right to Fundong. I was quite impressed because she didn't only go to give out the items that she had to give them, but she gave a talk in the dialect. She explained to them what autism was, and she showed them how to use masks. And those are the type of people we need to support in our communities, those who are willing, those who have shown the interest that they want to learn, and they also want to support our children. And one of the things which
Absolutely.
I also know as well, autism awareness, autism advocacy is not a me thing. It's not my thing. It is my autism. No, the only thing I can my here, I'll say he's my son, and nobody can take that away from me.
Right.
But
Right.
his autism is not my autism. So autism awareness, autism advocacy is not a one person thing. It's not a one platform thing. And probably that's one of the reasons I am here on your platform and we are talking about autism, because we need many people to get into this. We need many platforms to be able to talk about this and act as as well. So as many people should be able to join in. Do not feel bad or do not feel uncomfortable that because Clarice is already an autism ambassador, she may feel uncomfortable that I am doing the same thing. No, it's not my thing. Autism is not
Exactly.
my thing. He is my son, but his autism is not mine. So it is open. Everyone should be autism aware. We should be able to talk to people on what autism is. Involve many people becoming autism ambassadors and autism advocates. We can actually, us in COM, we can actually create a platform where we will be able to train autism people to become autism ambassadors. I am an autism ambassador here in my community in the UK, and I had to train for that in addition to my postgraduate studies. So I did that. I became an autism ambassador. First, I became an autism mom, became an autism ambassador, and an advocate for my son. Then, I actually moved from, let's say, from practicals then back to theory
Right.
instead of the other way around. So we need many people like myself in our community, and again in our rural areas. Many will not be able to understand all this grammar and neurological condition, developmental. What is that? So we need people who will sit there and tell my grandma or my mom that when a child is running up and down like this or shouting or not being able to use words, it's because of his condition, because of this, because of that, not because he's stubborn, not because he knows what he is doing. So we need people who will be able to train others, talk to others about the condition, because being aware
Absolutely.
is
Absolutely.
very
And you
necessary.
just mentioned something there, talking in the language. Remember that even when COVID came out and everything, the World Health Organization was very keen on people sharing the message to their, to their countrymen or village people in the language that they can understand, right? And I
Yes,
think
yeah.
with something like this that requires awareness, it needs to go to the people in the language that they can understand. And I know that you personally have already been doing this, as you mentioned. Colette
Mhm.
went right to Fundong. You have been to other platforms that allow you to express your knowledge of this topic in Itangecom, right? As a
Yes.
Nawai. Maybe I forgot to tell people
Yeah.
that you are a Nawai. So you have been to Ndoa Bong, and you have spoken about
Mhm.
this in a time in a language that the people in Com can understand, and hopefully that we can expand that. And I can see the CEO of Ndoa Bong mentioning that you can create an entire school for children with disabilities, and pumps his hand up like that. Yes, so that's definitely something
Mhm.
that not only for Com, but for other communities, for other rural areas, anybody out there that is watching and listening. And AC did mention compassionate people, people who are patient, people who are empathetic, people who understand this. The moment you become aware about this and you think, you know what, I need other people to become aware as well. Hey, get
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
there, get some information, become an autism ambassador, and get into your community. Get involved. As she
Mm.
said, it's not a my thing, it's a collective. It's a collective effort.
Yes.
And for those of us that are really, really passionate about this topic and about our fellow countrymen, our fellow people back home in particular who don't have as many resources, please think about it. Get in touch and figure out how you can get involved and contribute to raising awareness. Now, let's round down. And there's no way we're going to run this down without all of this work that you do, busy here and there, and you still get the opportunity to showcase your beauty in this Miss UK, Mrs. UK, or Mrs. Africa UK
UK.
pageant, which I believe the competition is ongoing. And I am not bringing it up just because of the beauty of it and your beauty that you're showcasing there. It's because somehow it's still tied to your advocacy mission. So, but first, before we talk about how it is linked to your advocacy mission, talk about this beautiful lady here. Because when I look at her, I'm like, okay, who is this? So, so what is the? Let our audience know about what the Miss or Mrs. Africa UK 2021 pageant is all about, and then we'll go ahead and talk about your run from entry point to being a finalist now, and how that ties into your advocacy project. So, take it
Okay.
off.
Yeah, the Mrs. Africa UK is a beauty and it is an empowerment program that supports women with African roots, women aged 30 plus, single or married, women who are who have activities that they are doing, empowerment activities, or things that they are doing in their community to support others. And again, women, whether you are big, you're fat, you're small, you're tiny, so whether people will tell you you are not beautiful or you are not intelligent, unlike the traditional pageant programs where at first if you hear of a beauty pageant, what comes to mind? A slim
Long legs.
ish, long legs, tall, 20-year-old. And no, the Mrs. Africa UK is not our traditional beauty program. It's not only a beauty program, but it is an empowerment program that
Wonderful.
empowers women of 30 years plus of African origin who live in the UK. And I happen to be a 30-year plus
Yeah, yeah. So you happen to
lady.
be a
And
30-year plus, you happen to be married, you happen to be beautiful, you happen to be doing activities in the community. So
in the
you
community.
feel
Yeah.
you feel all the gaps, in there, and all
Hmm.
the check boxes, and you have gone
Hmm.
through from the entry point to being a finalist. So talk
Yeah.
about that. What does being a finalist mean? And is voting ongoing?
Yes, voting is ongoing. For the People's Choice uh, finalist, which is online. It's going on online now till the 30th of July. But the grand finale is on the 31st of July in Manchester, Kimpton Hotel in Manchester here in the UK, where we will have the runway. And again, like I said, it's not the typical beauty pageants where you have ladies on stage in bikinis. Oh no, we are not that. So you expect to see these African ladies in their African attires, in their evening wears, and in their casual wears, but not bikinis. And again, winning this competition, huh, because they support women who have activities uh, doing in their communities, and I am already doing some of those activities which involves autism awareness, as we've talked. So winning this competition will help to amplify my voice in raising autism awareness, and it will also open up um, more avenues or more channels for me, maybe to have more resources to be able to support more autistic children in Cameroon, because I represent Cameroon since I'm originally from Cameroon. So I represent Cameroon, and I'm based in the UK. So I'll be an ambassador for Cameroon and the UK if I win. So it will be an opportunity for me to be able to raise more awareness, to encourage more love, understanding, acceptance, and inclusion for anyone, any individuals and families affected by autism. And again, it will be an opportunity for me to tell ladies, to tell my fellow women out there. I am 44, and then I've enrolled in a beauty pageant. So it's not all about the physical looks, because many do think that for a woman to be beautiful, for a woman to be able to do things in our community, you have to be of a certain shape, a size, a height, and things like that. But a beauty pageant doesn't necessarily have to be that way. You can be fat, you can be short, you can be any shape, size, as long as you are an African and you're based in the UK, you can be part of this. Um, and you can be part of this competition maybe next year. So we should not feel uncomfortable when we are aging, or when we are over 30, because many of us do, especially after having children. You start looking at yourself and you start thinking, I'm shapeless. I'm no longer beautiful for my husband or my man or for whoever. But it's not all about that. So this program encourages women from African origin to be able to embrace themselves, accept themselves, and also for them to be able to support others in the
Wonderful.
community as well.
That's powerful. That's so it's both it's some kind of a recognition, but then it's also a
Yeah.
push at the same time, right?
Yes.
For to
Yeah.
support the endeavors that you are engaged in to make them.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking you are using that platform really powerfully. You are not only representing Cameroon here, you are representing Com. You are like a Nawine here. So as my
And
brother Bo Mike
bamboo
would say, yeah, and Cameroon,
and
of course,
bamboo
yeah, I know. I oh yeah, yeah.
and
I
bamboo.
I know. Let me not make Gideon come and hit me here that I'm forgetting that part of the world. So, but yeah, how 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 can people, your people that are listening to you now and feel like you deserve to win at this, so that you can, I mean, not just in recognition of the fact that yes, you are, beautiful and this, but also to support all these endeavors, since this is another way to spread the word. People that are watching now, how can they vote? How can they go vote for you?
There's the page, the Facebook page. I think after this talk, then I'll put the link in the comments box. It's Africa UK Empowerment Program. You go to that page. Yes, there it is, and then you click on the post with all the other contestants. Then you scroll down to my photo. It's simple. You just like any of the emojis there will still count. If you don't like the photo, you put an angry face or a dislike face, that will still count as a vote. So, and then the next thing which you have to do is to like the page, which is okay, that's the now in there. So, so you like my photo and then you like the page for your vote to
All right.
count. One thing
So,
which I would like to add, just in addition, is
mhm,
because some people may be wondering why did she really go into this. Another reason that I went into this is as a woman, when you've gone through some of the things that I've been through, there there's a point where you seem to have lost your self-confidence, and programs like this help to boost your confidence. They help to bring you back maybe to the person you used to be, or for you to be able to understand yourself more, to be able to reclaim that you and become the you that you want to be in the near future. So I just want to encourage any woman out there of my age, 30 plus, but I'm 40 plus, that if you are and you're interested, next year it's still open. Why not? At the end of the day, it's not all about winning. For example, if I do not win, I've learned quite a lot, and I've this has given me the opportunity to go on more platforms, and to be able to raise more awareness. Also, it's not only about autism awareness; it's also about mental health awareness.
right.
At being the mom of a child with a disability, there's that point where you struggle as well with your mental health. Many do struggle, but it takes just a few to accept, to acknowledge that they struggle. I have, because we go through that stages of grief, and one of the stages of grief is depression. At some point, you get hit hard with that. It takes a few to get down there and still to be able to get up and continue.
Yes. And you are up there, So this is powerful. So dear viewers, audience, please visit the Africa's UK Pageants and Empowerment Programs Facebook page. Like the page, scroll down to the photos of the finalists, find AC Mbengs, and right there it will be Clarice N. Angafo full name on there, on that page, on the picture, and like it. You can, if you don't like the picture but you want to vote for her, do any face, whatever you need to do, and let her win this thing, so that we can join her in this crusade of advocacy to bring this knowledge about autism to our people even better. So thank you so much, AC, for sharing this. And I hope that as we round down here, that people are going to go to this page immediately and go click, 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 click. Let's see those numbers rise, and let's feel like we contributed, not only to her winning, but to her message of autism awareness. That's one way that we can get engaged before we
Yeah.
become autism ambassadors. This is one way that we can be deputy ambassadors by pushing the ambassador ahead to get this done. So please go out there and become a deputy ambassador for autism by voting for our sister AC Mbeng. She's doing a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful job. And you just mentioned that one of the powerful things about this is recognizing yourself again, coming from grief and developing that toughness, both physical and mental. And so I'm going to get from here, and then we'll go into that aspect again as we close down the next 8 minutes here and talk
Yeah.
about that, how you have developed that thick skin, that mental toughness, that physical toughness, and how you want others to do the same, right? People
Yeah.
with different experiences to come through as powerfully as you have. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. All right. So talking about, grief and then accepting and then developing the strength and the toughness amongst all of these things that you're doing, you get a chance to sit down and write a book. Man, how do you do that? How do you find the time and the strength to gather all of this and say, I have come through the experience. I feel like I've developed some toughness and I want to share this story so that maybe it will inspire some other people. So talk about, grief to great. Talk about grief to great, and as it says, a touching tale of love, loss, pain, and tenacity. And I like that word at the end right there, tenacity, because that is
Yeah.
what it's made you. It's your strength, your ability to handle things, your ability to deal with situations, and you want to share that with people. So talk about this book a little bit.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing this up. Grief to Greed, a touching tale of love, loss, pain, and tenacity. This is actually a real life story, and everyone mentioned in there, every place, every location, they're all real. These are things that happened in 2017. So it's a grieving mom who recounts the emotions that she went through when she lost her little baby at 20 minutes old. But in going through grief, she actually discovered that um, grief can actually make or break a family. So she had to go back in time to know where it all started, which is where the love comes in. The story, a tale of love. So in our chapter 1 in this book, there's a lot of romance. There's a lot of how it all started before. So, and then we talk about the pain, the loss. But I went through all of those. And a simple message that I can just say now is no matter what you've been through, you can still smile again at the end of the day. But it requires some resilience. It requires you to give yourself time to be able to go through and to be able to understand what you are actually going through, because many of us do go through some form of grief, or we would have gone through some form of grief. Sometimes we do not actually know exactly what is happening. So in this book, the grief came up because of the loss of a baby, but what is actually written in the book can actually help anyone who is experiencing a grief, as a loss of, maybe loss of a job, loss of a relationship, or divorce, or anything valuable that you've lost. It may not necessarily be the loss of a child. And during this period, I actually learned that there are many things that we do not know or that we take for granted. A 100-year-old person who dies will be well celebrated, but a 1 day old baby or a 1 hour old baby will be swept under the carpet because it's just a baby. we do not have to talk about it. God needed another angel in heaven, and so on and so forth. So, one of the messages I put out in the book is life is life. Whether you're 100-year-old or you're 1 day old, that was life that lived. That was someone that lived. And life has to be treasured no matter how long they lived on earth. So, in the book Grief to Greed, I've brought out practical tips on how to support a family that's going through a grieving process, especially when they've lost a child or they've lost a loved one. I've also brought out some of those consoling words that you can say to someone who is grieving, and some of those words that we think they are consoling, but they are not. At the same time, it all depends on individuals, and it all depends at which stage they are at in their grieving process, because what may hurt me during my grieving process may not necessarily hurt another person. But in all, we have to be mindful of what we say to someone when he or she is grieving. An example, a typical example, oh God, no the give way to where you know if you handle them, which is what many people say. Saying that to someone who is in the heat of the moment, who is deeply grieving, the person will think, so God just decided to take my loved one now because he knows I am grieving. So statements like that, we have to be mindful. I know our grandmoms income are fond of telling us, the young ladies, don't worry, um it's just the it's just water that poured. I wish I could say it in the dialect, because if you want me, I'll say it in the dialect. Can
Yes,
be
of
o
course. You cannot come to KKV
akumu
and not speak the dialect a little bit.
can be o wan wo akumu tenta mushusa a baliet na buku. How do you know that? How do you know this is a grandmom who is really struggling to console her daughter and trying to tell her that don't worry, you are still young, you still have many other babies to give birth to. But she may not have an idea that maybe this baby this lady has lost was her final try, maybe with IV and things like that, and there's no other calabash there to hold that baby. It may be somebody who is has already reached the menopause, and there's no other calabash there to hold the baby. So yeah, so in all, when you've gone through challenges, when you've gone through tragedies of this nature, it may be the loss of a loved one, it may be having a child with a disability. No matter how difficult it is, aim at picking up yourself afterwards. Aim at finding meaning, which is the title of a book from David Kessler, who he co-authored another book with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross,
Mhm.
whom I used the stages of grief from. So they say that after everything, after you've gone through the denial, the anger, the bargaining, depression, acceptance, there is still finding meaning after
Right.
all
All of
you've
that.
been through.
Hmm.
And what I will say to that as well is to learn from what you've been through, grow through what you go through, no matter how painful it is. There's that thing called experience. And I have been through them. And one of the things which I should say I'm proud of is the experience I've gained. Probably that's the reason why I'm sitting here today talking to you guys, because it is because of the experience that I've gained from what I went through. I didn't get what I wanted, but I gained experience, which is what I encourage every other person out there. No matter what you go through, give yourself time to grieve, give yourself time to understand your feelings. Not everybody will understand your grieving process, but make sure you give yourself time, because grief is a dangerous thing if not well managed.
Right.
It can affect you mentally if you are not careful. So care has to be taken. You've got to take care of yourself when you find yourself in some form of grief. And to me, losing a baby, losing a child, yeah, that was a peak of it.
Wow. Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you very much for that. And as the title says, grief to greet. Ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers, it comes in the Kindle form and in the paperback form. So you can get it in any form. You can get the Kindle version, you can get the paperback version. And as AC has said, whether you are somebody that has gone through grief or is going through grief, that book is for you, because you get to experience, to share her experience with her and how she went through it. Or you are somebody who is trying to console someone who is going through grief. There is information there for you on what to do and what not to do. The what to do's and the what not to do's. Even when you think you are doing your best, sometimes you can actually be doing the opposite of what you think you are doing. And she talks about that in the book. So all of us, therefore, because one way or another, we will be dealing with grief or working with somebody or consoling somebody who is dealing with grief, this will be very, very valuable resource for us. So please go out there and get a copy. I have mentioned here that we do have this on Amazon. If you go to Amazon, you can get the paperback or you can get the Kindle version and read it directly on your tablet. But what about the people that are watching from home? Yaoundé, Douala, Cameroon, or anywhere else? How can they get access?
At the moment, it's available in Bamenda and in Douala. So I'll put the contacts here, or you can contact me directly, and then I'll give you the individual's WhatsApp number so you can get in touch with them. But there are copies available in Bamenda as well. And let the title of the book not scare you, because many have looked at the book and they're like, grief. Yes, grief, I will say, is inevitable. Remember that grief is not only about death. It's something which we must experience at some point in our lives. Even during this COVID, many of us have grieved. Even if we've not lost a loved one because of COVID, we've lost the fact that we had to be going out to work. We were stuck at home, isolating, and we haven't had to see family members and friends for a very long time. So we've gone through some form of grief as well.
Right. I mean, and for those of us who are from the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, grief is definitely part of our system these days, no matter who you are. So I think it's important. There will be different levels, different extents, but it's still about losing something or feeling like you are losing something, and there's still always need to take care of that early enough. And if this is a resource that can help people see how people who have dealt with situations like this, it can be very, very inspirational. So thank you very much for sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end of our program for today, and I just wanted to point out one final comment here, I think from Bobebo Mike. What was that? It says, all of us have to become deputy ambassadors supporting the ambassador. Talking with AC Mbeng about autism transformed me completely. I wish I had the power to make her voice louder. And I think that's true for me as well. And I'm sure it's true for other people who get to learn about this, who get to learn about this at different stages. You start thinking back to when you were growing up and thinking, wow, I wish I knew more at the time. I wish I had this information. But ladies and gentlemen, we can never wish backwards. We can only say, well, if I could not do it yesterday, what am I doing about it today? Right? So what am I doing about it today? What are you doing about it today? What are you going to do about it tomorrow? So let's get engaged. Let's figure out what role we can play to bring this message to our people, those in the remote areas, how we can help them understand, how we can help them accept, get away from denial, understand the situation, and understand that it is no one's fault. It simply needs us to put our hands together to cater for ourselves, our loved ones, our neighbors, our community people. So thank you all so much for joining in to watch. After this 30-second break, we will have our guest of the day round up for us, and then we will hope to see you again pretty soon. So we will be right back. AC, I want to take this opportunity to thank you again for coming in to the platform today here on KKV to share your experiences, your thoughts and ideas on, what we can be doing, what we should be doing, what people should think about, especially back home and in rural areas when thinking about this topic of autism. As you have expressed throughout this 1 hour, 30 minutes, it's a topic that we all need to engage in as a community, as a people, because it's not a single person thing. And you have been doing your part. It is left to us now and the rest of you watching to get engaged and do your part. Final thoughts.
Thank you so much for having me today, and thank you so much for everyone watching. The only thing which I would like to say before I go is do not look at autism or do not look at autistic individuals and their families with pity, but you have to have that love, that understanding, acceptance, and inclusion within you in order to be able to support them. And one thing you need to know as well, autism is not a condition to be treated, and but a child to be loved. And autism is not a disease. You will not take paracetamol and get well because of autism. So let's put our hands together and support each other. Like I said, autism is not a me thing, it's a collective action. Autism needs more platforms. Autism needs more people to know exactly what it is. And in general, autism needs more autism ambassadors out there in Cameroon and in our communities. So we should be willing and able to support everyone that's working in this area, teachers, parents, professionals, and every other person, more especially our autistic children or our autistic adults, because a child with autism will grow up into an adult with autism. And thank you so much, Dr. Vic, for having me today. It's a pleasure, and looking forward to come back here as Mrs. Africa UK.
Absolutely. I cannot wait. I cannot wait for that. And I want to thank you. Thank you so much for coming in to share today. Again, this is a broad topic. One day, one session cannot do it. One platform cannot do it. We have to do it over and over and through several different tentacles, any option that we have available to push this message across. So thank you for accepting our invitation to come in and share. And obviously you'll be coming back. As you have mentioned, I think the summary of our today's discussion, dear viewers, the summary of our today's discussion, and I'm going to borrow from your t-shirt that you used during your 2021 Autism Awareness Month in April, the activities that you did back home. And the t-shirt says, autism is not the tragedy. Ignorance is the tragedy. So
It
this is
is.
this, yeah. So what we are trying to do here is trying to break that ignorance, to solve that ignorance part of it. Because if we solve that ignorance part of it, then autism is no longer a problem. It will be there,
Yep.
but it will not be a problem. So autism is not a tragedy, ignorance is. So our
Nice.
job here, ladies and gentlemen, is to try to break that ignorance chain. And our hope is that you have gotten something that will help you also play a role in this process, help to dismiss the ignorance, try to inform people, try to make people more aware wherever you are, whatever little way you can, so that we can dismiss that strategy, which is ignorance, and then we can take care of our loved ones, our neighbors, our friends who are autistic, wherever they are. So thank you all so much for joining in. Thank you, AC. I really appreciate you, and I look forward to, seeing you with the crown and celebrating and then joining you in the rest of the endeavors as time goes on. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers, we have come to the end of our program for today. We appreciate you for joining in. Today, we are talking about improving chances for autistic children in rural areas, and we can summarize that the key is to eliminate ignorance. The key is to provide knowledge. The key is to provide information, share information, and break away from some of the what you call the stigma, right? eliminate the stigma that sometimes exists in our societies and in our communities, especially in rural areas, about some of the disorders and problems that we face. If we can do that, then each of us will be playing a significant role in making our communities just a little bit better by ensuring that everyone in the community, including our children and our friends that are disabled, children that are autistic, children that have various limitations, everybody will have a chance. Thank you all so much for joining in. We look forward to having you again next Saturday at 2 p.m. This was KKV Come Kingdom Vibes. Let's get talking. We'll see you again soon. Thank you all.
Master Robusta on the beat.